These past few days, Yin had done nothing but kept an eye on Midoriya. After their encounter with the green-haired scholar and her failed attempt of trying to get him into her coop, Yin had felt paranoid. To say that she's very afraid of her life was an understatement. She tried to approach Midoriya once. It was futile when he immediately sensed Yin and fled. So she retorted to watching him from a distance, making sure he didn't do anything that might jeopardize her coop. Everything will go to hell if Midoriya decides to tell Bakugou about it. So with the extra tension in her gaze, Yin is warning Midoriya not to tell anyone about the coop every time she were bare his eyes on the back of his head. Much to Yin's relief, Midoriya had done nothing that would give away her plan, even though he has been wary of Yin. He continued his duty like always. Difference is, he hasn't been continuing to give Yin to announce her duties. Since Yin refuses to give up, she is determined to approach him again and convince him to be in her coop. "Your Majesty, what are you doing?" She jumped at the sudden voice. Turning, Yin was met with the confused Uraka. Nothing, I just, Before Yin could even come up with an excuse, Uraka took a peek at the other side of the wall where Midoriya is. "Oh, that," the brunette remarked. Yin had told her about the situation with Midoriya after the night she confronted the green-haired man. "If you'd like, I can come up to him and do the convincing," Uraka suggested. Yin immediately shook her head. "No, I don't want him to find out that you're involved in this. It'll be dangerous for you." Uraka understood and nodded. "I also thought Deku-kun would be a good ally," Uraka commented. "I was surprised he turned down your offer. If there was anyone in this court who had witnessed how cruel His Majesty is, it would be Deku-kun." "I thought it was that way as well. He confessed that he doesn't approve of my husband's ways, and I expected him to join right away," Yin sighed. "For now, I will keep an eye on him. I'll make sure he doesn't say anything." "You might want to stop for now, Your Majesty." "Why should I? Everyone has gathered around the entrance place. Apparently, someone is arriving today. Specifically right now. You might want to see them." Yin furrowed her brows, fully confused of what Uraka is talking about. Has something happened? She's been watching over Midoriya these days, that she hasn't had much time to mingle with the court people. Who's them? His Majesty's mistress. Just as Uraka said, everyone was gathered by the doors of the palace. Of course the court won't miss the arrival of the king's mistress. By the time Yin got there, it had become too crowded. Still, she craned her neck to see a carriage on the front. Servants were unloading luggage trunks from the carriage. Yin still could not see the mistress, but she can tell everyone had seen her as others were whispering. "I heard she's from the south," one elderly noble said to another. "Heavens, the south? What is His Majesty thinking of picking a woman from the south? For all we know, she could be one of those savages." Yin didn't mean to eavesdrop on their conversations now that she's wondering what's wrong with the southern people. Yin knows that in the past the kingdom Teria from the south was Igneous's enemy. The south and east only stopped fighting when Bakugou's mother, Queen Mitsuki, won the war and claimed the Western Kingdom's territory. However, she did not change the Kingdom of Teria's name as its monarch. She only allowed the king and queen of Teria to take in charge of the kingdom, given that Teria is now owned by Igneous. That deal was sealed when Queen Mitsuki married Prince Matsuru from the south, and ever since then, Igneous and Teria had stopped fighting. Yin knew that history from their mother, but judging from the elderly noble's reaction, they haven't accepted the southern people yet. "Excuse me," Yin uttered politely to get to the front. The nobles bowed and curtsied to her as they let her pass. Yin found Mina and Yaoyorozu and immediately went to them. "Oh, thank God you're here," Mina immediately said when she saw Yin. "Do you know about this, Yin?" Yaoyorozu asked. Yin shook her head. "No." Then Yin moved her head to see the mistress. When she did, her eyes landed on a woman who was about her height. She has reddish brown hair, and from afar, her porcelain skin glowed. All of a sudden, the mistress began to walk towards the crowd, specifically to Yin. As the mistress kept her eye on her, once she got in front of Yin, the queen noticed the mistress's gleaming hazel eyes. The mistress then gave a very low curtsy. Then a guard came up and introduced her. "Lady Erika from the house of Nakahara." The mistress kept her curtsy with her head hanging low. "Your Majesty." As Yin stared at her, she felt no jealousy nor rage upon the idea that this woman will be given to her husband to satisfy his needs, something that everyone expected Yin should do. Instead, Yin pitied the woman. She pitied her for being the next one to be stuck with Katsuki Bakugou. What was he thinking? Midnight was livid. Yin had decided to join her friends for dinner. The men aren't present, which is nice, as Midnight had done nothing but curse Bakugou the whole night. He hasn't conceived his marriage yet. Now he's having a mistress, the woman said, throwing her hands up in the air in frustration. Kings usually have lots of mistresses, Midnight. There is nothing wrong with it, Jiro reasons with her, but immediately sunk on her seat when Midnight shifted her gaze on her. There is nothing wrong with that, dear, Midnight said. Because of that mistress, the nobles found out that he hasn't consummated his marriage with Yin yet. Now everyone is worried that because of her, an heir won't come. And she's from the south. God damn it. Yin sighed. Let us not beat her because of the fact that she's from the south, Midnight. Let us not blame her for everything. She tried to comfort the noble. And Jiro is right. Bakugou is bound to have mistresses just as other kings do. Now it was Yin's turn to receive Midnight's glare. Shouldn't you be the most worried about this? You are his wife. He's supposed to spend time with you, not with mistresses. I think I'm good, Yin thought. I am aware of that. But if he wants a mistress, then he can have one. I can't do anything about it. Midnight sighed hopelessly, shaking her head. She muttered enthusiastically, I can't believe it. Exactly. Yaoyorozu politely intervened. It wasn't His Majesty's decision to have a mistress. Yin raised a brow at the statement. Midnight perked her head to listen. Yeah, Mina said, her head low. It was Kaminari and Kirishima's idea. That idiot, Jiro cursed. And Bakugou let them do it? Midnight gritted her teeth. I'm so sorry, Mina uttered. Yin was taken aback. What are you sorry for? I should have told Kirishima not to send for a mistress. Don't be sorry, Yin immediately said. None of this is your fault. Yaoyorozu nodded. She's right. If anything, it's no one's fault. I personally believe this isn't a big deal at all. A mistress will only be here to satisfy His Majesty's needs. That's all. Clearly you haven't heard the story of the king with 6 wives, Midnight said. What? Midnight sighed for the 9th time this night. Forget it, dear. Now I want you to focus on one thing. Yin already knew what she was about to say. You only need to secure an heir for this kingdom. To do that, you must not let that mistress steal all of your husband's time. Try it again with Bakugou. Yin knows that would be impossible now, so she has to play along with the court again. Nodding, she smiled. All right. Contrary to what she said, Yin actually plans to stay away from Bakugou as much as possible. Maybe it's right if this mistress can steal all of Bakugou's time. With that, Yin can focus on her coup. He heard her call his name. His crimson eyes immediately darted to where she stood at the end of his bed, clothed thinly, with her nightgown and her robe shielding her from the cold. as well as shielding her from his wandering eyes. Oops, did I forget to mention this has a little spicy part? Bakugou found himself reaching out for her. "Come here," he whispered. Audibly, she placed her hand on the bed. Next, her knees dug on the bed. As she crawled to him, her nightgown was pulled by gravity, revealing a part of her chest. Bakugou watched as her hair slid down every time she moved closer to him. Now, she's on top of him. Bakugou immediately snaked his hand around her waist and pulled her down so she could sit on his lap. She giggled at his eagerness, and she couldn't help but smirk. Then, she started leaning. Bakugou couldn't control himself and smashed his lips onto hers. They felt familiar. He then realized he has been craving for them. He tilted his head to deepen the kiss, and the other hand traveled to her chest. There, he erratic a moan from her when he groped her breast. He took this opportunity to insert his tongue and explore her cavern. She started to move her hips against him as he removed her robes. Now, the only thing preventing him is a stupid nightgown. Bakugou released her lips and pushed her down on the bed. He wasted no time in ripping the only fabric left covering her body. Before he could do anything, he marveled at the sight of her body. Glistening under the silver light, Bakugou felt the need to ravage her right there and then. But he can't also ignore how beautiful she looked under him. The cold tip of her fingers woke him from his thoughts, and he found himself being guided to her lips. He kissed her swallow lips again. Then she was gasping and moaning when his lips traveled to her neck. He bit and sucked, making sure to leave marks on her. His lips traveled to the valley of her, I gotta be careful now. He continued until he found her heart hardened, He kissed her, and sucked on them, while he worked his hand on the other. Her moans are driving him insane. Katsuki. Once again, he found himself back on her lips. But he's not kissing her. Not yet. He stayed and fixated his eyes on hers, while his hand crept lower and lower to her body. She arched she arched her back and rubbed on him again. Then she started to kiss his jaw, neck, and shoulders, while he found his hand on her inner thigh, dangerously getting close to her. Katsuki. She moaned on his shoulder and did not stop the movement of her hips, her voice pleading for him to touch her, to continue to kiss him, and went back to his neck, where she found a spot that made him groan. Her minstrel with her lips and hips helped loosen whatever restraints he held. He found himself saying her name. Yin. And all of a sudden, it felt like a blanket of cold water was splashed on him. Bakugou opened his eyes and felt his body covered in cold sweat. He began to breathe heavily and ask himself, why the hell is he running out of breath? Then his mind drifted back to his dream. Bakugou balled his fist and took a sharp intake. He exhaled loudly and sat up. That was the second time he dreamt something like this. He's now considering it was a nightmare, as every time he woke up from that dream, he would feel strange, and he felt like his self-control is slowly deteriorating. Bakugou hadn't had any dreams like that since that night happened. It infatuated him how she invades his mind every day. Bakugou would always think of his wife, and now how she annoys him ever since. But to think that she would invade his dreams as well as such deluded nature, it made him hate her more. Hell, he can't even look at her right now without feeling uneasy, making his grip tightly on what was left of his self-control. But does he really hate her? Sure, Bakugou goes around saying he hates everyone and wants to kill them, and Yin managed to piss him off once, twice. He claims he hates her and how he was so ignorant and innocent of everything, but his dreams were positively what he feels. It confuses him why he suddenly feels like this. Fuck it, he thought, swinging his legs off the bed and on the cold floor. He ran a hand through his face and let out a long, deep breath. Suddenly, a knock reverberated from the door. Your Majesty? Bakugou recognized the voice of the servant responsible on bringing him new clothes. Sighing for the 9th time, Bakugou got up and decided to start his day. Bakugou decided to go back and do some paperwork to prove to everyone that he's fine. He's functional, and to prove Kaminari and Kirishima that he's not deprived of women, and that does not need a mistress. But that was not the case when he entered the study. The fuck? There was a woman in his study, standing and shuffling through the bookshelves. Oh, Your Majesty! She curtsied as soon as she saw him. His brows creased, wondering who this woman might be and why is she in his study. And then it hit him. This woman is his mistress. I am Lady Erica, Your Majesty, and I'm your... He cut her off. I don't care. Get the hell out. The woman's eyes widened, obviously taken aback, but she whipped and shocked looked on her face and smiled nervously. I don't understand, Your Majesty. I thought you called for me. I didn't. Now get out. When she didn't move, Bakugou glared at her. Is she not afraid of him, or is she just plain stupid? Those questions swirled in his mind and was suddenly reminded of someone. Clicking his tongue, Bakugou was ready to yell at her to leave, but Kirishima suddenly entered the room. Oh, Bakugou, good morning. The red-haired grinned, Bakugou glaring at him. Shitty hair? You? He growled. Whatever his friend urged entrance and looked between him and the mistress. I see you've met Lady Erica here. How is she? I don't want her here, shitty hair. Get her out. His tone was final, as he made his way behind the desk to settle down. Well, Kirishima hesitant, and was about to say something when the woman spoke again. It's all right, Sir Kirishima, the woman said, then turned to Bakugou with a smile. Surely His Majesty needs time. I will come back next time. Then she went out. Bakugou finally let out a thankful sigh when Kirishima stared at him with disbelief. I told you I don't want a mistress. Why the fuck is she here? Bakugou asked the redhead. But I thought you want one. You've been frustrated and we told you we would get you a mistress. And I do not agree. You didn't disagree either, Kirishima said. Bakugou opened his mouth and glared harshly. Whatever. Take her back to where she came from. Well, that would be inconvenient for her. She just arrived after all. Do I look like I care, Kirishima? Look at me now. I'm perfectly normal. I'm back to work and there's no need for my frustrations. Or whatever the hell you called it to be tended. Bakugou said, shrieking through the parchments, only to glare at the amount of work needed to be done. Great, he muttered under his breath. I need a drink. You're lucky that's all you got, Kirishima said, pretending to the amount of paperwork. It's a good thing half of your paperwork has been done by Yin. Bakugou flinched. Don't say that name. What, Yin? Bakugou slammed a hand on his desk. Fuck you, shitty hair. See, you're still frustrated. And what the fuck is your point? Kirishima sighed once again. Let's just keep Lady Erica here for a while. Who knows? She might help you take your mind off your wife, and then you'll at least feel better and start working again. The court has been asking for you, you know. They always ask a lot of things. The blonde, excruciated, ran a hand through his hair. But fuck them, I'm gonna have a drink. He stood up and made his way out of the study. Kirishima called out for him. What about the paperwork? Kirishima asked. Bakugou merely shrugged. The redhead shook his head and jogged after his friend. I'll join you then. Yin decided it's time to approach Midori once again. She found the scholar outside the garden. He looked like he was about to enter the palace when Yin emerged from her hiding place and stopped in front of him. Your Majesty, he said, avoiding her eyes. Midoriya, we need to talk. She pressed firmly. There's nothing to talk about, Your Majesty, he said, going around to pass her. Yin lifted her dress and rushed in front of him. There is. You're avoiding me before I can even have a chance to explain myself. Please, don't say it. The coup? Midori cut her off and stressed her. Don't say that out loud. Someone might hear you. He whispered, shouted. No one is here, Midoriya, she whispered, and please, please, let me at least explain it to you. But this is treason, Your Majesty. If he finds out, he will behead you. Yin sighed, wishing Midori to be more reasonable. You told me about your thoughts back in the library. It is clear to me, Midoriya. It is clear to me that you want a change. You think if he continues his way, it won't end well. Yin pressed on. That's what you said. And I'm giving you a chance to rid this kingdom of his neglectful ways. Midoriya gulped. He stared at her. Yin could feel pure hesitation in his eyes. I can't take that chance. Yin's shoulders shrugged. Have you decided to be loyal to him now? I'm not loyal to him, Your Majesty, he said. I'm loyal to the crown. Midoriya made a move to walk away, and Yin watched his back as he started to pull a small distance between them. Then Midoriya suddenly stopped. He turned to her. I suggest you abandon that coup. Whoever tries to oppress him ends up dead, Your Majesty. Not even you, his wife, is an exception. Midoriya's figure became smaller as he moved further away from Yin. She failed for the second time. Just when she was about to walk away, someone caught her eye. From one of the windows in the palace was a woman. Yin looked closely to see that it was Lady Erika.